there, and welcome to Empowerment Unleashed. Become the leader of your own life. My name's Gina Gardiner, and I've got over 35 years' experience of helping people step into their genuine power and become the leaders of their own life in order to become the leaders of others. But to do that in an enlightened, conscious way, to lead with integrity, compassion, and courage. And for the next 15 or 20 minutes, I want to share with you the principles of that and some examples from my own experience to really illustrate how you can make such a difference to the quality of your life in the way in which you approach it. So what do I mean by become the leader of your own life? You're the common denominator. You take you into every moment of every day, from the moment you're born until the moment you die. And so it makes sense to do that in a conscious way. The reality is that 95% of the time, 95% of us are doing this unconsciously. We don't think about the quality of our thoughts. Our actions and our language are very often habitual patterns which have been created very early on, and we very rarely question them. And so I want to take you through some simple things that can make all the difference. The first one is to recognize that everything we do is a choice. I mean, everything. And every choice has consequences. It's often when we allow things to drift and we don't really take notice and do things in a mindful, proactive way that the greatest problems happen. So as you're going through your life, it's really important that you recognize the patterns of your thinking, your behaviors, your language, and recognize too that your beliefs underpin all of these. Once you have that awareness, you then have a choice. You can continue to behave and do and think in the same way, or you can choose to do something different. For me, the biggest game changer is taking radical responsibility for your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your actions, and your words. When you take radical responsibility, you don't blame somebody for making you unhappy or for someone for getting in your way of getting the job that you want. You take responsibility for how you're showing up, then that's a game changer. That will change your life and those around you. Taking radical responsibility and understanding that in that moment by moment, you choose how you are, how you be, that makes a difference. Ultimately, our beliefs are what drive our emotions. If you believe you'll fail, it's a done deal. You may be familiar with Roger Bannister. Now, he was the first guy who ran a sub 4-minute mile. He was told that if he ran that fast, he would die. He wouldn't get enough oxygen. And if you look at the footage, then you'll see that there are men in white coats with oxygen masks in the hope, they thought vain hope, that if he did collapse, that they would be able to give him oxygen and resuscitate him. Now, the fact that he ran a 4-minute mile, I think is amazing. But what interests me even more is that within 1 month, over 30 other people had done the same. Believe you'll fail, it's a done deal. And most people, because they think they will fail, don't even try. They don't even start the process. So they're never going to succeed. Then the next category of people are those who fear they will fail. And because they fear they will fail, they make very, very different decisions to those who believe they will succeed. I've done a lot of research about very, very successful people. And what I've recognized is that pretty much the same as all of us, except in one way. They have an unwavering faith that they will succeed, and they don't see failure when they get things wrong, when things don't go right. They see it as an opportunity to learn. So the only failure is the failure to give it a go in the first place, or the failure to learn when things don't go well. I want you to think about your life. Do you learn more when everything's rosy and going well, or do you learn when things go wrong and you have to find a way forward? Our beliefs about ourselves are so important, and they are the bedrock of the relationship that we have with ourselves. You are the common denominator, as I've said. And so ultimately, thinking about the relationship that you have with yourself is going to color every relationship you have with every other person. If you believe you're not enough, then you're going to allow other people to treat you in a particular way. Having that belief in yourself is so important. And doing that without being arrogant or egotistical about it is just as important. That belief about yourself is going to color how well you do in life. I want to share over the next few minutes some personal stories that will identify what I mean. I've been around a long time. I started my professional life as a teacher, and I was promoted very quickly because I was good at it. And I went for a deputy headship, a deputy principalship. And this is now, we're talking about 1982. And I went to visit the school, and the head teacher, the principal, said to me, "We don't want you, we want a man." And I thought about it and I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "All my staff are women except for me. I want a man. I want a male role model, and I want somebody to run the football team." And I thought about it and I thought, I'm going to apply anyway. What have I got to lose? If I get an interview, great interview practice, I'm going to give it a go. So I applied and I was given an interview. On the day of the interview, the head came up to me and said, "Thank you for applying, but I just want you to let you know that if a man applies and is your equal, he will get the job. So you've got a big hill to climb in order to get the job." But I had made the decision that I was going to go for it. I was going to do my best. If I did my best, that for me was success. So I went into the interview and lo and behold, I got the job. Now, if I had taken notice of what was said at the beginning, I wouldn't have applied. My life would have been very different. But I decided that I was going to do it, but without holding on emotionally to the outcome. So I wasn't going to be devastated if I didn't get it. I was going to use it as experience. Now, I went on to become the head of that school a year later when the head died. And the reality is that a ski accident in the middle meant that I ran that school for over 20 years, for the most part, from a wheelchair. Now, here comes the second thing that I think you need to recognize. It's not the challenge that defines you. It's what you do with it. I became wheelchair bound, but I was determined that the children and the staff in my school were going to get the best deal I could. And whilst there were plenty of dark days, I've learned to walk twice as an adult following 2 failed back surgeries. I realized that because I couldn't physically get into my classrooms, I had to find a way of empowering my staff to take radical responsibility for their performance and a shared responsibility for the whole team. It was highly successful. The school was on the 100 best schools in England list twice during my tenure. We were a beacon school, and so I worked with hundreds of other teachers and dozens of other schools, helping them use the same principles, the same approach that I developed. Now, I'd like to think I would have developed it if I'd been able-bodied. However, I'm honest enough to know that I'd probably interfered too much. So this incredible gift helped me all those years of headship. I didn't leave headship until 2004 when I started my own business, and I've used those same principles with hundreds of individuals and dozens of other businesses, helping them to become highly successful in a holistic way. It was all based on radical responsibility, understanding your patterns of behavior, becoming the journalist of your own life without judgment, not, "Oh, I shouldn't have done this, I should have done this," but recognizing, are your beliefs, are your behaviors, are your emotions empowering you or keeping you playing small? If they're empowering you, then that's something to keep. If they're making you play small, then it's time to do something about it. My favorite quote of all time is Einstein's definition of madness, which is to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And yet we all do it. We do it more often, we do it harder, we do it more intensely, when the reality is, if something is not working for you and it hasn't been working for you over a period of time, then it is time to change things. Your your relationship with you is really, really important. I want you to think about how you treat your best friend. When they do something well, do you congratulate them? And do you feel good for them? When they do something you don't like, do you go on and on and on at them? Well, how do you treat yourself? What's that critical voice in your head doing? Is it going on and on and on? Are you always putting yourself down? I'm not good enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm too fat, too thin, too young, too old. Are you dissing your ability? Because ultimately, if you don't believe in you, then it's going to be far more difficult to get other people to believe in you. Does that mean you have to be perfect? No, none of us are perfect, and yet we are all enough. We are on a lifelong journey of learning, if we choose to be. Every experience we have is an opportunity to learn to be a better version of ourselves, and to recognize that the version of ourselves today is simply the foundation of becoming the better version of us tomorrow and next week and next month and so on. Have a think about how you view yourself. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? When you talk about yourself, do you very quickly get in there and tell people, oh, I'm not very good, or I can't do that, or I'm really silly? Because if that becomes your mantra, that you're not good enough, that you are silly, that you can't do this, you're no good, well, that will become your reality, because our perception becomes our reality. Think about Roger Bannister. The perception of those 30 other athletes was, can't do the 4-minute mile. If I do that, I'm going to die. Roger Bannister changed their perception. And as a result, he won the race, and other people went on to run as fast, or if not faster. I want you to think too about your connection with your intuition, your inner wisdom. Because when you are able to give yourself that stillness, that quietness, and listen in, you will find that your intuition is really, really powerful. Warren Buffett talks about the time when he didn't listen to his intuition early on in his career, and it cost him over $1 billion. Richard Branson, very successful man, talks about using his inner wisdom in order to make sure he's got the right data from the right sources. And so think about your inner wisdom and how you use that. And also recognize that you have a connection with a higher power, whether you call that God, Muhammad, or the universe. Ultimately, we all have that connection with a greater consciousness than ours, if we choose to recognize that. And more people are becoming aware of that connection, and recognize that when they tune into that connection, when they let go of the white noise, when they allow themselves to simply be, that they are able to unlock the door to possibilities. To help you, I've created a free spiritual blueprint, which you can get by simply emailing me at Gina, Gina, at genuinely-u.com. And I'll very happily send you the spiritual blueprint, which looks in more detail at your relationship with yourself, your inner wisdom, and with consciousness. And so that's Gina at genuinely-u. But I want to finish up talking to you about a life without limits. Now, as I said to you, I was the principal, I was the serving head of a school for over 20 years. I was considered somebody who really pushed the boundaries, because I worked in so many external roles to bring a budget into school. I was a trainer facilitator for the National College of Leadership, for the London Institute. I was a workforce reform advisor for the government, did all sorts of things to bring a budget into school and to keep the school at cutting edge. Soon after I left headship in 2006, I'd become a neuro-linguistic master practitioner. I'd done more coaching qualifications, and I'd gone to look at people using NLP. And I ended up at the Excel Centre in London, where Tony Robbins was doing a course. And I arrived there. I could walk a few steps, but not without help. but pretty much in my wheelchair. And in the morning, he talked about a course that he was running in California. And I really fancied it. I thought that sounded great, but I dismissed it. How would I manage? I didn't have a travel electric wheelchair in those days. How would I manage? I just dismissed it out of hand. That evening, we did the fire walk. And for those of you that are not familiar with a fire walk, you walk over hot coals, about 30 feet of them, in bare feet. But if you're in the right mindset, you don't get burned. And so with somebody holding my arms both sides, I managed to walk the 30 feet, got back in my wheelchair, my feet were unscathed, and I was absolutely chuffed. I was really, really ecstatic. But when I sat down, the guy behind me was a double amputee. He had no legs below the knee. He turned himself up onto his hands and he walked those hot coals on his hands. I realized I was self-limiting. No matter that I'd run a school for 20 years, that I'd done all of these external things, I was self-limiting. I booked my ticket, I booked my flight, I went off, I did the course, I then did all his other courses, became a senior leader for him, and I am eternally grateful to that man whose name I have no idea who he is, because what he taught me is however much you're doing, you are in reality still self-limiting. And so I charge all of you with the question, are you self-limiting? Are you going to be the leader of your own life? Because when you choose, actively choose to do that, then you become the leader in your own life. And when you are an enlightened, conscious leader of your own life, leading with integrity, compassion, and the courage to do what's right, rather than what's self-serving, then you can become the beacon of light for other people. We need you. There is no doubt we need you. The Dalai Lama said that it's going to be women who actually change the world. And so every one of you that's listening, we need you to step into your power to become an enlightened leader of your own life and to lead others. If you want to find me, you'll find me all over social media, and do please apply for the spiritual blueprint. Just email me, gina@genuinely-you.com. Take care, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye now.